Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is the Extraordinarily Average Tag. So this tag was created by David Wiley, and he also tagged me in that tag. So thank you, David, for both creating and for tagging me in this. And he has a very interesting list of prompts and questions for this tag. And some of them I had a little bit of a hard time answering, especially because a lot of his questions ask about what's something that people see as average, but you see as extraordinary. And I don't always have a sense, I think, or at least a sense that I trust, of what people consider average. So we'll see how he did with this. His first question is, what is a book that is viewed as average, but you felt was extraordinary? So the one that I came up with was this. I've mentioned this in past videos, but it's been a long time since I mentioned it. But Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton Trumbo. And you know, I remember reading this when I was working at night at a convenience store, and it would get slow at night, and you know, I would of course bring some books with me, and I just remember being drawn into this one and just really sucked in and really taken with it. And if you've seen the video for or heard the song by Metallica, One, you pretty much know the story because of course in the video they use Dalton Trumbo's cinematic adaptation that he did in the 1960s, I believe, as part of their video. But basically, that song is an adaptation of this book. So this was published, I think, originally in the 1930s, right? Let's double check. Yeah, 1939. And you know, it's about an American soldier in World War I who has an explosive go off next to him, and you know, he wakes up and he realizes that he has no arms, no legs, he has no face, so he can't smell, he can't see, he can't talk, he can't hear. The only sensation he has is touch. But the entire book takes place inside his head, and so you're seeing him realizing this. You're seeing him realizing, come to terms with what he now is. And of course, because he doesn't have those other senses, he can't always tell if he's awake or if he's dreaming. So in the middle of him kind of talking about something, you know, he's drifting in and out, and you as the reader are figuring out when he's awake or he's asleep. And it was just, I thought, first of all, that the premise is so powerful. You know, I don't think a more powerful anti-war novel can be, you know, written than that. Just the premise alone, but also the execution, how hard it would be to write the basic stream of consciousness of somebody's mind for that. So I just think of this as an extraordinary book. I think it's incredibly effective as well and powerful, and nobody seems to talk about it. Nobody seems to care about it. The next one. Who is an author who is viewed as average, but you felt was extraordinary? This one I had a really hard time with, because this is one of those things where I don't necessarily know what people think of different authors. So I came up with kind of a certain book that I just wanted to give more attention to. This is another one that I've mentioned a long time ago in other videos, but that's Ambrose Bierce and The Devil's Dictionary. I have not read Ambrose Bierce's fiction, or at least not much of it, and I am going to remedy that. I will eventually read more of his stuff, but I love this little book. This is basically, this is a dictionary, but it is done in such a kind of cynical style with such biting wit. And this was originally published in, looks like 1911 around. You know, people always talk about Mark Twain as like the great American wit, and you know, I mean, deservedly so. But I think that Bierce matches him, and in some ways, in this thing, surpasses him a little bit. I think that Bierce should also be mentioned in the same breath with that. And I would highly recommend this for some very fun intellectual humor, especially if you've got a dark sense of humor. And a more cynical view of the world. And I just consider this the ultimate bathroom reader. It's the best one to, you know, to take to the throne with you if you want to sit down and read a couple of passages. So this is what I'm going to say. Not average. I do think this is extraordinary. And what a cool accomplishment. Number 3. Who is a musician or band whose music is considered average, but you felt was extraordinary? Now, of course, people who are fans of this music will certainly already think it's extraordinary. So I was thinking, bands, you know, sometimes I get sucked down rabbit holes where I'll see reaction videos. It's sometimes a fun way, if you have like a favorite music, you know, musician, to sort of, you know, enjoy their stuff in a new way by watching people react to it in the first time. And I know sometimes that's low-hanging fruit when it comes to YouTube content and all that. And there are some of them that have fake reactions and do it really badly. But every so often you find somebody who's pretty genuine and thoughtful, and you're like, oh, this will be fun. I want to see what they think of this song. So these are the types of things that I think I'd love to see people react more to. And the fact that they don't makes me think that people don't think that they're worth reacting to. That people think of them as maybe more average than not. So I got a couple different musical artists or groups that I want to put a spotlight on. One of them is Concrete Blonde. The singer, Jeanette Napolitano, hopefully I'm saying that right, I think is really one of the unsung, quote unquote, I mean, no pun there intended, but her voice, one of the great female rock vocalists that just does not get talked about, and really good songwriter, terrific songs. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I'll link some stuff down below. I don't know exactly which things I'll link, but some representations, I guess, of some of my favorites, I suppose you could say. Not necessarily what people would objectively say is their best work, I guess, but the songs that I find personally extraordinary for one reason or another. Maybe they touch a nerve, or really good songwriting, or really emotionally effective, whatever it is. So I'll put some links down below for these artists. But Concrete Blonde, they've been around since the 80s, all through the 90s. They kind of go back and forth between being together and apart again. And Jonette, I know, has put a lot of solo stuff out. But they always impress me. Terrific songwriting. Really good lyrics a lot of times, and her voice is just terrific. So yeah, Concrete Blonde, one of those bands that, of that era especially, really should have gotten more attention. They were just excellent. Another one, this is not an obscure artist, but one that I don't think has gotten the kind of respect maybe that's due for the output they had, especially in the 90s. And this is the era I'm talking about here, and that's Tori Amos. Her first 4 albums, you had Little Earthquakes in 1982, Under the Pink in 1994, Boys for Pele in 1996, and From the Choir Girl Hotel in 1998. Those are just, as far as I'm concerned, fantastic albums. And when people talk about the 90s, I think they need to also talk about Tori Amos. She is just, I think, one of the best female songwriters, especially during that era of the 90s. Now, some of her stuff ever since then is hit or miss with me. I don't consider myself like a diehard Tori fan necessarily. That early stuff for me is superb. And it has a certain edge to it. There's still, this, a little bit of a darkness there that I like. She's not, her stuff is beautiful, but it's not safe. And I guess one thing that I will mention, this is not an obscure song from her, but it's from her first album, Winter, where she talks about her father. And I will say that ever since I became a father of a little girl, there are times when I listen to it, and for some reason, I must have a medical condition. I get this like watery discharge in my eye. I'm not sure what it is, but whenever I play it, it seems to happen. But I'll link that one down below. Another artist that unfortunately doesn't seem to be making music anymore, but I just thought really deserved a lot of attention when he was making music in the late 90s and early 2000s, and that's VAST, V-A-S-T, which stands for, I think, Visual Audio Sensory Theater, and the artist is John Crosby. Maybe not that John Crosby, different John Crosby. Anyhow, his first album, which was Visual Audio Sensory Theater, was played around a lot with samples, but I thought it was terrific. And then his next album, Music for the People, was just a little more straight rock, but also had some great stuff. And then he had a later album, April, which is more stripped down, a lot of acoustic, but some beautiful songs in there. He has this one song called You're Too Young, that is one of the kind of like saddest songs about aging for me. It's basically this young woman who's trying to have like sexual advances on him, and he's basically realizing that he's just too old for this person now. Now, that's not something that I have a problem with necessarily. I don't have these young women throwing themselves at me or anything, but the way he sings it, and you're gonna see this sadness of just being like, holy crap, like I'm at a certain age now. And, now that I'm in my 40s, it certainly hits me. And the last one I'll mention, that is, I'm not a country fan, but I am a Sturgill Simpson fan, and he has got some great stuff. He is a country artist, but you can't really pigeonhole him at all. One of the first albums I really liked by him was like meta modern sounds of country music. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it had a very psychedelic nature to it. So imagine like, country with psychedelia, and then he had an album that was brought in some jazz and more of like a hard rock type thing. But so he's always experimenting with things, but he's a very good songwriter, very good lyricist, always has interesting sounds. I love his guitar sound. So Sturgill Simpson is one that I would also say. So sorry, that was kind of a long list, but I wasn't sure who to focus on. Number 4, what is a TV show or movie that is considered average but you felt was extraordinary? I'll just say some of my favorites here that I go back to over and over again, and I always find something new. The first one was Conan the Barbarian from 1982. That movie does not get enough respect for just how good and actually surprisingly, it's got some smarts to it. But it is just a great fantasy film. The world that they create, the attention to detail, I really love that one. It is just a quintessential type of fantasy film for me. But again, a lot of times people, when they think of Conan the Barbarian, I think they think of the sequel, Conan the Destroyer, which is a dumb movie. I have some nostalgic fondness for it, but it's a bad movie. It's not good. And that is more in the imitation of all the knockoff barbarian movies that came after Conan the Barbarian. But no, the original from 1982, superb film, and one of the best classical, or symphonic soundtracks, I should say, ever. I love that soundtrack. It is intense. Another one from the 80s, another Schwarzenegger film. That's Predator. Another one that I think people don't realize how smart it is. That's an incredibly smart film. It's great. Terrific script. It's playing around with the kind of, muscle-bound action heroes of the 80s, playing around with that idea, and then basically throwing it out the window and saying none of that matters. So yes, it has many sequels after it, none of which comes close. Although the one from last year, the prequel that takes place amongst Native Americans is probably the best one that we've had since the original. I would absolutely say that, but nothing has topped the original yet. I love that film, and one of the best creature designs ever. I love that, the look of the Predator. And the last one I'm going to say is another kind of creature feature. This is a film that every time I go back to, I find something new. And it's another one that I love the writing, I love the characters, I love the scripts, and I love the creatures. I love all of it. And that is Tremors from 1990. About these giant sandworms eating people out in the deserts of Nevada. But the script is so smart. The characters are great. It has terrific moments of humor, of horror. You get to know this small town. And yeah, it's awesome. I love that movie. I can always go back to it over and over and over again. It is endlessly quotable. And yeah, I think it is extraordinary. Extraordinary. It's not average. None of those movies are average. They are all extraordinary, but none of them get the respect that they deserve. Number 5. What is a Booktube channel whose subscriber count is average, but you feel is extraordinary? That's most of the people I talk to on Booktube. I think that would be all of my co-hosts on Historathon. But people could always look at my other videos to find out more about them, because I talk about them quite often on that. I'm going to say David Wiley. If you're watching my channel and you don't know David Wiley, go check out his channel. He needs more subscribers, and he's a good, wholesome guy. So check him out. 6. What is a skill you're average at, but you'd like to become extraordinary? So extraordinary seems pretty ambitious. There's not many things that I'm looking to be extraordinary at. I do want to get better at or competent at. If I'm to become extraordinary, I'd like to become extraordinary at being a father. I think I'm an average father. You could always be better. I think I'm a good father, but you could always try and improve more. You could always try and do more. So I'd like to be an extraordinary father. I'll say that. But other things that I practice, language acquisition. I'm studying Latin. I'd like to get better at that. Not extraordinary at Latin, but I'd like to get better at Latin. I'd like to take up things like HEMA again. historical European martial arts and get better at, because you call it swordsmanship. Get better at that, get better at, take up archery again more frequently and get better at that. So yeah, and also writing. I want to get better at writing again. I've been out of practice for a long time. I've been trying to bring it back, and I have a little bit here and there, but you know, I need to get back into that as well. So extraordinary, I don't know, but better, yes. Number 7, you find a time machine that will take you back in time for a day, but the day you select must be an average day. Where would you go and what would you do to make the trip extraordinary? So, you know, going back in time, of course, I don't want to die of disease or be murdered. So I'm not sure exactly when I would go. But you know, I'm somebody who loves social history. I love the kind of quotidian details of history. So if I went back in time, I would be, you know, just walking the streets and checking things out. No matter where you put me, I would just be in absolute awe, certainly. I mean, I could even see going back, you know, 100 years in my hometown and go checking out the streets and the cars that are driving around and, you know, the signs and, you know, that would just floor me. But to make it extraordinary, I'm going to say I'll go back to 1939 with a pocket full of change. And I'll go to a newsstand and I'll buy a whole stack of Superman #1s. And then I'll bring them back. And that will make that trip extraordinary when I start cashing in and auctioning those things off. So that'll be my answer for that one. Number 8, you win a week vacation, but all the popular travel spots are all booked out. Where would you go and what would you do to make the trip extraordinary? I'm going to kind of take a page from what David Wiley said. See, this is one of those other things where I wasn't quite sure what's an average vacation. I wasn't sure what that was. He said Scandinavia, and I would love to go to Scandinavia. Absolutely. But that's expensive. It is a very expensive place. So, you know, winning a week vacation, that's awesome. But I don't know if I consider Scandinavia to be average. But, you know, I guess maybe he's thinking like Disney World is something that people would generally say. But yeah, I mean, I want culture and history. That's where I go through. So I want to see, I'd love to see the old, you know, the old remains of Viking settlements and the rune stones, things like that, going to the museums. I would absolutely love that. And really anywhere in Europe that I can do that, I would also love. Not just, obviously not Viking, but, you know, take the train around, go to the different cities and, you know, go check out castles and museums and artwork and try the food and have lots and lots of local beer. All of that would just be great to me. Those are my ideal vacations. I don't know if that's considered average to other people, but that's always extraordinary to me, all on its own. So, number 9, tag some extraordinary channels. So, I don't remember exactly who he tagged in this. So I am once again going to go, you know, not be super creative, but I'm going to tag my co-hosts for Storathon 2023. They're a great group. They are not obligated at all to do this, but if they want to, they can. And we have some questions about history and travel, so this might fit for them. So if any of them want to do it, and I'll leave their information below, they are more than welcome to. All right. So thanks again to David for creating this tag and for tagging me. And as always, thank you, Booktube.